CNN presenter Piers Morgan was the latest journalist to face Britain's Leveson inquiry into media ethics and phone hacking overnight. The former editor of the Daily Mirror and the News of the World told the hearing he had listened to a Paul McCartney voicemail, but denied it was unethical. Our Europe correspondent Philip Williams joins us now from London. Phil, good morning. This McCartney voicemail was a key feature of Piers Morgan's appearance.
Yes, it was, and it's intriguing, isn't it, that he was saying adamantly that he's not been involved in any illegal activity, not been involved in phone hacking, not been involved in payment of police, and yet we have this intriguing bit of evidence which he didn't really want to elaborate on because he didn't want to reveal the source. Here's a little of how that exchange went with Robert J. from the inquiry.
It doesn't necessarily follow that listening to somebody speaking to somebody else is unethical.
But on the tape of a voicemail message, you didn't think that was unethical?
Well, it depends on the circumstances in which you're listening to it.
But can you tell us something about the circumstances which might lead us to think that it was not unethical?
I'm afraid I can't, no, because I'm not going to do anything that may identify the source.
Many people listening to that, Phil, would just be astounded by the way Piers Morgan viewed his listening to that voicemail.
Yes, and as I say, intriguing as to the legal gymnastics one may have to go through to justify that or to accept it. But we simply don't know the answer to that because he's not revealing how he came about that recording. But he has admitted he did listen to it. So that remains to be revealed. Whether it is in the near future waits to be seen. But he's certainly been very adamant that despite being an editor on a paper that had a number of journalists listed in a particular private investigator's notebook as having been clients, that as far as he knew there was no illegality whatsoever and that his hands were totally clean.
And how did he carry himself throughout what was obviously a fairly heated exchange over a long period of time with that Leveson inquiry lawyer?
It was. It got quite tetchy, even with Lord Leveson actually butting in and saying, well, we might call Heather Mills, Sir Paul McCartney's former wife, and call her as a witness as well. Yes, it was ill-tempered at times, but Piers Morgan is the master of cool, and he maintained his cool and his reserve, spoke only the bare minimum and responded in the bare minimum way, and felt at the end that he'd been a bit like a rock star where his bad points had been highlighted and the good points ignored. This wasn't ever designed to be fating Piers Morgan, who now fronts, of course, his own show on CNN. Yeah. He's a global entity now. But he was obviously a bit miffed at having to give evidence via a video link from the US and not happy with the results. But you have to say, you'd have to give him the accolade that he amazingly kept his cool, despite what many would regard as some provocative remarks. And he certainly looked totally in control at all times.
And finally, we had the suggestion overnight from the Leveson lawyer that Rupert Murdoch himself could be called to this inquiry. Where's it at the moment, Phil? How long has it got to run?
Well, it's going to start winding up next March, we believe, so it's got some weeks to run. But whether or not we get Rupert Murdoch back or not is a matter of pure speculation at this point. Of course, James Murdoch, his son, was recalled and was questioned again, particularly on his memory of certain key emails. But as for this particular rumour, we'll have to wait and see if it's true. But as we've seen, and we saw again today, this does have teeth. They certainly have bite here, and the Leveson inquiry is being used to try and really burrow into the culture as much as anything. They really have no interest in the great detail of specifics of certain cases that may come before the courts, because that would risk sub judice. But they want to understand the culture, how these hacking allegations thrived, how these alleged misuse of private investigators, etc., were able to go on for so long, apparently with impunity and little conscience on those who instructed them in the first place.
OK, Phil Williams in London, thank you.
Thank you.